Hello and welcome to Talk About, where today I want to talk about DLC, or more specifically, something I haven't really heard people talk about, and that is the question of how DLC should be balanced. Now here, I'm not talking about things like multiplayer map packs. No, instead the focus is on more campaign-focused DLC. So, without further ado, let's rock.
Talk about DLC and balance issues.
There are two main types of players for DLC, and they are A, the ones who buy a game and then will pick up the DLC somewhere later down the line after they've finished the game and not played it for a while, or B, the type of player who will get the game and the DLC together and play them together, i.e. getting a Game of the Year edition or a complete edition. The key debate here is to which of these types of players should you target more with your DLC, because between the two, the skill and experience will vary a lot, as the ones who bought the complete edition and played it all in one go will obviously be better than the ones who had a break and are out of practice with the gameplay. An example of this kind of problem for me was with Catlevania Lords of Shadow. The DLC was a couple of extra chapters after the end of the game. This DLC was essentially just a continuation of the difficulty curve of the original game, and with me coming back to it months later after I had played the original game, I struggled with it. I'd even forgotten some of the controls trying to figure out how to use some of the secondary items. But I also had a harder time with the combat, having to complete the DLC chapters on a lower difficulty setting to what I had done for the main game, because I wasn't practiced enough to be better or even the same as I had been when compared to when I'd spent several hours with the game when playing through the story modes. Here, it was obviously more targeted at the complete edition players, to the detriment of the returning. But if it had gone the other way, it would just be the same situation reversed. Complete edition players would just be frustrated with how easy it was. This is a key problem when you are making a game where challenge is a key component of it. This is why I would argue one of the more popular developers for DLC is Bethesda. In my opinion, the focus in their games is more the story and the world, rather than great challenging combat. Though in terms of challenge, they also sidestep this problem with the level scaling of the world. It's also for this kind of reason that I feel the episodic games released so far have been story focused instead of gameplay focused, because this is far easier to get back into with each episode, rather than run the risk of a player getting frustrated at the start of an episode, unable to process due to being overwhelmed by difficulty they are just out of practice for, leading them into not carrying on with future episodes. It's safer to just make it easy and not scare off players. Due to this, it will be pretty interesting to see how the new Hitman's episodic structure plays out. The main other problem with balancing DLC comes about when a game has a lot more numbers to it. For example, Borderlands 2. Now Borderlands 2 had 4 main DLC packs. The first 2 had a recommended minimum level of 15, and the second 2 have its level recommendation as 30. Now I do believe the DLC will level scale up for when you first entered the area of the DLC, so you could wait till after you'd finished the main game and then start the DLC, but I didn't do this. I played through the first 2 packs when I hit level 15, and after playing through these, I went back to the story mode, and I was much more powerful in what was required for the quests at this point. This is because the outside influence of the experience points and loot I obtained in that DLC upset the progression curve balance of the main game. The only way I could see this working would be to upscale the levels for the rest of the game, dependent on what DLC was completed. But that's a lot of work to go back and fiddle with the base game, and I don't think many developers or publishers will be willing to do that. Another big problem with DLC balance comes in the form of story rather than gameplay. With the second 2 packs of DLC for Borderlands 2, they made reference to some big plot points towards the end of the main game. Obviously here, it's believed that these 2 packs will be played after the story mode is complete, but that's not necessarily going to be the case, and having the game spoil itself is obviously a bit of a crappy thing to do. The way I can see to solve this problem, and I suppose the prior problem as well, is to prevent the player from playing his content till they have done the main game. However, there's one very obvious issue with this idea, and that is that you'd be restricting content that someone has paid for, and there are some very ethical issues with that. So, after all that, the question still is, what's the solution to balancing DLC? And the answer I have is, don't make DLC. I don't really have a clear solution for how to balance DLC. Sorry to not have some kind of grand reveal at the end. But I do feel that the rise of standalone expansions, like Far Cry Blood Dragon, that are essentially separate games that can have their own balance curves and stories, while still being able to reuse a lot of the work done, is probably the closest I have to an answer. There is still problems with these. For example, I can't imagine how well a game like Borderlands would work as a much smaller experience, as a large part of its appeal is in the long-term progression. Well, I've rambled on and I haven't got any great conclusion or solution to end this with, so I guess thanks for watching. And if you didn't like this video, maybe you should consider downloading the extra content for it to see all the awesome parts that didn't make it into the main video. There's a wizard duck, I do some breakdancing, and Emma Stone makes a guest appearance. I may have poorly balanced the quality between the main video and its DLC. You know, like there's poor balance between the main part and the DLC. Like what I was on about in the video. Get it?